Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by Prize Picks. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest join us this week. You can check him out on Amazon Prime doing Thursday Night Football, but also I'm pretty sure you'll be able to check him out pretty soon over here on Wave Sports and Entertainment. Andrew Whitworth, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Appreciate the invite.
Oh, man, so we got a podcast coming?
We do. Fitz and Whit. We've, started this kind of mid-season, gotten it rolling, and we're having a blast, man. Just getting a chance to talk about our travels on Thursday Night Football and the adventures of our games, and when we go to cities and go check it all, the scene, and then also just being dads. Everything we do. Ryan's a dad of 7 kids.
7.
I've got 4 and I got 3 dogs. So it's a circus for both of us, and we get to tell a little bit of our journey every week, talk a little football as well.
I still can't believe he's got 7 kids. I don't feel like they teach you that at Harvard.
I agree. I think they're like 17, 15, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5. I mean, it's crazy. I don't even understand how you handle all that at one time.
Well, let me ask you this too, man. What the hell he be wearing on y'all podcast? Because I see what he wears on television.
So, well, you know what's funny? He just goes T-shirt and a hat for the podcast, but I don't get any of the silk button-ups. I think this year he's worked into some designer button-ups. I mean, the guy's getting, he's pure TV now. I mean, goodness gracious, no more shirtless Buffalo Ryan Fitzpatrick. We got the silk shirt button-ups.
Well, you enjoying TV?
It's been really fun, man. I don't think when I play, Bonnie, I say this all the time. Like when I got in the league in 2006. You were told by your offensive line coaches and offensive linemen, like, you don't speak to the media, you don't do interviews, and you never talk about our football team. Like, you are an offensive lineman. You protect, you block on run plays. Other than that, you keep your mouth shut, And so to think like from where that went in 2006 to now having multiple linemen across, different platforms on TV, it's crazy to see kind of the growth that's been there even in the recent couple of years. But I didn't ever even think about it while I played at all. But I would get people to kind of tell me in an interview or maybe after an interview, man, you should probably think about doing some TV. Like for some reason, like you come off in a good way. And so it made me think about it when I retired, and I did some interviews, and it got excited about the opportunity, and here we are.
Did you have your moment in doing it where you looked up, wait a minute, this is actually a little harder than I thought it was? Because that is one of my fun things to watch, is you guys realizing that we ain't just out here just popping stuff off. There's a little bit more work involved in this than it looks like from a distance.
There's been multiple of those episodes because, obviously doing, and this, like doing live TV is totally different than sitting around even doing a podcast or in a studio or anything else. And so really being your first experience, I think ours was in Kansas City, Chargers, Chiefs, the energy of that stadium, the lights are going in and out, it's loud. You can barely hear your producer. Is it my turn to talk or not? Like you just, the whole thing, right? And you're like, whoa, there's actually some nerve, some energy. Like this is more fun and challenging than I really thought. And not only that, but you have you don't have anything to help you when you're out there. So you better know what you're talking about or you don't. And that's going to show real quick, and you're going to be nervous or you're not. And so those things happen. I'll never forget our first year, we had an incident of a historic NFL head coach. Jim Moore was actually tripped right behind our set and fell down, and we're going live, like the countdown. And I'm like, what do I don't know what to do. Is there a handbook? Like, I want to get up, like the lineman in me, like, hey, I want to go over here. Hey, coach, like, just be the right person. Like, hey, let's stop the show for a second. Let me go make sure coach is all right. And we go live, and I'm the first person Chris is going to. And I'm sitting here hitting Sherm because Sherman, I saw it. And I'm like, what do we do? Because you know how it is now. Somebody's going to take a picture of that and be like, oh, they just carried on the show, and coach is down there on the ground. And I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. But it was hilarious. And then obviously they helped coach up. He's all right. And so we're like, all right, we keep going on with the show. But I can never forget me and Sherm both freaking out. Like, we don't know the answer. What are you doing this? We don't have the playbook.
Hold on. And we talk about Jim Moore Sr., playoffs Jim Moore.
Oh, yeah.
So he's about 80-something years old.
Yes,
so it's not
legend.
even just simply like we got an issue here. Like
yes.
this may be a catastrophe if Jim Moore
you
has
don't
tripped.
know, right? When you see him fall down, you're like, I don't know how he's doing because you can't see him underneath our set. So I'm like, man, do I get up? What do I do right now? I had no idea. I don't know the live playbook.
Well, it's also funny when people fall down, and no matter the circumstance or situation. My brother always says, "Falling and farting, they always funny, no matter
That's
what it
it.
is." You'll never be so old that my first reflex is not going to be to laugh. I might catch myself, but I give you credit in that moment for actually going straight to, "Are you okay?" as opposed to, "Whoo, whoo, you good? You good? You straight?"
Yeah. If I was not checking on him and laughing at him, I'd have been in a real tough spot. That's for sure. And I know about the farting thing too, because I got 13-year-old, 12-year-old boys. So trust me, every meal can't start with part of that.
And that's the problem, because it's so difficult to explain to kids at that age. You're telling them it's not funny, but you're lying.
And you're laughing while you're telling them.
Every single time. Like,
you can't help but laugh while you're screaming at them.
So I want to ask you this. We're going to talk some more football a little bit later, but something I noticed a little bit, and when I was doing the research on this to double check on this, what apparently was it about members of the 2001 LSU Tigers where all of y'all are on TV? Like, it's one thing you're on TV, Marcus Spears is on TV, Ryan Clark's on TV, and then you got Saban on TV too.
It is pretty wild, right? What's funny, though, is that I would have said probably of the group, Marcus would have been the one I circled, like, no question this guy's going to be on TV when I first met him. I mean, the very first time I was around him, I'm like, this personality, he's so infectious and loving. And, man, you just want to, like, sit around this guy and listen to him talk, because it's just, no matter what he's saying, it's entertaining and you're just in love with the guy. And then Ryan has always been that convicted, just believes in what he's saying. He's passionate about a lot of things. I can remember as a rookie when I came onto campus, was Ryan's senior year. He was one of the first guys that, like, you have that moment where you're like, somebody acknowledge they think you're going to be special. We were in the weight room, and I was a young freshman, and I was a quiet kid at that time from North Louisiana. And I'll never forget him, like, calling me Baselli. And he was like, "Hey, there's young Baselli right there. I've seen this kid in practice." And I'm like, "Dang, all right. Like, appreciate that." He's like, "You're going to be special, man." I'll never forget him. I tell him that all the time. Telling me that. And then Nick Saban, man, he's one of the rarest people on the planet. What I love now, him being on TV, is people getting to see that, like, I've always said this, he's a tremendous coach. But where people get lost with Nick is all the reactions at Bama, the tirades that he'd go on, the speeches. This guy's planned every bit of it. He's a step ahead. He's waiting on you to ask him those questions. He's already got a speech prepared. He's already got something he wants to get off his chest. Like, he is planning everything he does, and he's a master at sports psychology. And so now when you get to see him on this desk, you're like, oh, he has a personality. Oh, he's so fun. He's always been that way. But as the head coach and the leader of this team in this university, he had a certain way he had to address questions, because he knew his players would listen. He knew his players would hear about it. He knew his coaches would hear about it. He knew his university staff would hear about it. So he was always sending messages through the media, because he knew the power of it. And now you see him on game day and you're like, oh, you know what he's doing? He's letting people know, I like to have a lot of fun, and I'm still sending messages.
So the thing I find interesting with it, though, is with these coaches, like, I think we see it a bit with Belichick and the idea that he might come back to North Carolina, which just screams out, man, I want to be a coach somewhere, right? When John Gruden first got into broadcast and he talked about all those years, he still got up at 4:00 in the morning and he did all that stuff and being a coach. Saban seems to have left the job and sat next to Pat McAfee and been like, I don't ever need to go back to doing that other job. Maybe it's because coaching at Alabama is so insane, but I have been surprised at how much he just seems to legitimately enjoy spending his Saturday mornings out there with those crowds and doing all those things.
There's no doubt. And that's what I mean, is that he's actually a guy who loves to just rib with each other. He likes to get at you. Like, when you became, like, his guy at the school, your version of what his personality and how he was on a day-to-day basis is totally different than everybody else. Because if you are somebody who you're seeking to be at your best all the time, you're chasing greatness, you're locked into being the best you can always, Nick and you got along great. Like, you didn't have any issues with Nick. And in fact, he would come to you and be like, I can remember being in stretch lines. He'd come give me a little elbow, like, check on me, kind of mess with me a little bit, talk some trash about some play I messed up. And then he'd be like, hey, watch me go over here and talk to this guy right here. Like, hey, Marcus messed up this stunt last week. Watch me walk over here and do this. And he'd go over there and boom, he'd light somebody up. And you're like, and he'd come back by you kind of snickering. And you knew that, like, he had it. That's why I say it was planned. He knows exactly what he's doing. He wants everyone to hear the tirades. He wants everyone to see it, because he's sending messages. But he's really a guy who likes to have fun. And I think he's found his way on that game day set where he's like, This is fun. I get to take some shots. This fits in with my personality. And by the way, I've dominated college football, so I don't want to go back to that. And I don't like the way the system is now. And my one time that I tried NFL football as a head coach, it didn't go very well, so I have no interest in that. So I think he's really comfortable being exactly where he's at, and I think he's living his life the best, and it's cool to see, man.
And you could not pay me enough to coach at Alabama. That's something we talk about on
Ooh.
this show a lot. Like these 3 losses DeBoer had that first year. Like Brian Kelly's got his things going on at LSU, right? Like I know there's different people with different levels of happy, but they don't fire you for 3 losses at LSU. It's just not that kind of place. Put up another 3 over there in Tuscaloosa. Let me know how that goes.
There's no doubt. I one thing I don't have interest in is being a head coach in the SEC right now. That's a challenge, man. That doesn't seem like that's going to be a whole lot of fun. The process of how it's done now, and then also just really the expectation levels sometimes is not realistic.
Now, so what do you think though? Like as somebody looks back, you started in the NFL in 05, now looking at what has happened with the money that's coming in now and the differences, like very little is the same. But like, what do you think outside of the NIL thing is probably like the biggest difference in college sports now versus when you were playing?
Well, I think really the whole thing's changed, and it's so different, really. I don't know that, I would have a lot of insight to a kid who's going, like, 'cause sometimes I'll have people reach out, like, hey, man, this young kid's always looked up to you. He's a left tackle. Can you help him with the whole process now? And I'm like, man, I don't even understand the process. So, like, I would have to dig into what all goes on in college football now to understand recruiting. You're hearing like some colleges now, it's about transfer portal more than it is even caring about what a kid's like in high school because they need guys to be able to play right now. And so it's like, unless you're one of those elite high school players, they're like somewhat interested and somewhat not. I think of, really guys I came out with in North Louisiana where it was like, man, there's some guys that became good players, but they weren't really high star guys at the time. It's interesting to me how much the landscape's changed. And I think it's tough to understand really for somebody who hasn't lived in it. I got a chance to go speak a couple times for, NFL training camps when they do media days this past year. And one of the things I would do is start the talk off making fun of myself and about like what technology we were using in 05 when I was at LSU coming into the NFL and, what companies were started there with Facebook and YouTube and all these things and how they've taken off and got the guys laughing and making fun of like, the phones we used then. I didn't even barely have social media or text or anything at that time. And the reason I did it is I wanted to explain to them, like, look, dude, I can't sit up here and explain to you how to handle Twitter reactions, to you play a game and people come after you because I never lived with it when I was a young player. I can't sit up here and tell you how to handle all these things with the media because we didn't have any of it when I played. What I can tell you about is the things that I believe on a day-to-day basis, if these are important to you and this is how you go about a process, usually it's going to lead to being successful and you can apply them to a lot of different things you do. And so for me, that's the place I come from when young kids ask about college football. I say, hey, man, here's some principles of who I think you got to be as a dude if you want to be successful at anything and you want to make really good decisions. But I'm not even going to pretend like I understand what money you should take, what's the best transfer situation, or how to get into a university because I hadn't lived it.
No, it's funny because like when people talk to me about media stuff now, like, do you have any insights for young people coming in? No, unfortunately, I have no idea what to tell you. Like everything has changed so much. Like the fact that we are now officially old enough that we could be like, nah, I'm actually too old to give you advice. Like I was, thought I'd get to this point. I knew the whole world, man. All of this moves so fast on every level that we can't even tell you what to do.
Yep. There's no doubt. And that's the biggest challenging part. I mean, I think for me, I feel for these young kids just because it is in college right now moving so fast. The only thing I probably would say, like my 2 cents on that whole deal would probably be, I wish that you lived in a world, and I know everybody's going to make it about how your football experience, but I wish you lived in a world where the transfer portal at least made you stay at a university for a calendar year. And the only reason I say that is I had a horrific freshman experience, like my first fall at LSU. Even though I went on to become the guy who started the most games in NCAA history, 52 at the time. You think of how it started, I would have never ended up there because I just didn't like it. I hated it. I hated being away from home. I hated being there. I didn't have a great clique that I was felt good about. In my first fall, I was miserable. I was calling home every day. I hated life. And then that next spring, I kind of clicked and I found my way. And I realized, like, man, I'm better at football than I thought. I'm better at, like, school's going better than I thought it would. I found some friends that I actually enjoy being around. I found, like, some things in Baton Rouge that I can appreciate. And, like, that's kind of my spots. And I just think it's tough when you're spending 6 months anywhere in any situation in life to really get a feel for who you are and where you fit in. And so I just wish that it was like, even if it was in June 1st type situation, I just think you'd see some kids be like, man, the money's good, but also, like, I love it here and I want to be here and I want to figure out a way to make it work here. I think you'd see some of that change a little bit for guys if they just had to stick it out a little more, and it would get some more consistency. And because I think about the players, I care less about the overall, like, college football quality. I care about the human beings. And to me, one of the greatest things that sports gives you is the opportunity to overcome adversity and the opportunity to find out who you are and develop grit. That is what sports is for. It's not for success, it's for overcoming. And so I just think it's tough to ever do that when you're constantly moving and having people in your ear telling you, you should go here, you should go there, follow the money, follow this. Like, I just think from a character standpoint, it's hard to really find yourself in that world.
I think that is one of the most underrated things about college sports. It's actually something as I think about with Belichick, the idea of him coaching college and for him to find out one person's girlfriend breaking up with him might derail your whole little situation because they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and that's life. But that's a big part of it. Very often, why did this guy transfer? Didn't really like it here. His girl goes to school somewhere else, or it was just tough, right? Because that happens to all kinds of people in college. You're far away from home. It's completely different than anything that you've done. And that's part of the ride. But you're absolutely right, especially with the incentive of playing time that gets thrown out there and everything else. You can quickly bail on a situation and you sound like somebody's granddad. People are like, well, you need to tough it out. And sometimes you need to bail. That's true. But also sometimes, you might just want to ride this one out and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I just think if you had to stay there from a calendar year until June 1st to June 1st, at least maybe you got that experience. Hey, it's time to bail. Like, I need to get out of this situation. Or I at least gave it enough time to figure out if it's somewhere that could be right for me.
No, that was, I think, one of my favorite things about college sports is I was like around, and being in universities while things are going on and stuff is the reminder, oh yeah, this is actually college. Because I think that when people watch it from a distance, it is, especially it's becoming more like minor league sports than ever. But you really lose sight of the fact, especially because them boys are so damn big. Hey man, this is it. They're like your knucklehead kids. They are.
I'll give you an example. I've had a couple guys come by the house, like, just recently, Ikem Iwanu, like, left tackle for the Carolina Panthers, 2 years ago in the offseason, came by the house, and I forgot. My wife had to remind me, like, we're hanging out in the living room. My boys are showing them around the house, and they're 12 and 13, and they go up, start playing video games up in their room. And, like, I'm sitting there with Mel, and I'm like, man, I ain't seen Ikem in a while. And she's like, oh, he's up there playing video games with the boys. And I'm like, what? And then she goes, babe, you got to remember, you're 42. He's 21. He just left college. He's a young draft pick. Like, he's closer to their age than he is to yours. And it hit me like, dang, that's right. Like, he actually is. He's more close to being their buddy than mine. And so it was just funny, but I never think of it that way, just because they're peers and they play the game and you're like, man, you respect who they are and how talented they are, but you forget how young they are at times.
All right, so I want to switch to a little football because you mentioned LA. You played for the Rams. They play the Thursday night game also coming up this week. I watched that game against Buffalo, which was one of those amazing Josh Allen shows. But it feels like the Rams are the sneaky team right now, right? Like, I think the record is 7-6. They seem like the team that might be able to do something that we hadn't thought about in a while for a number of reasons. Is that kind of the feel you're getting off of them?
I do. You look at the way they finished last year, going on an insane stretch to finish the season. I think 7-1, got themselves in the playoffs, and we remember the insane matchup of Matthew Stafford going to Detroit to play golf. But you look at it this year, it's been more of a struggle because they started really unhealthy to start the season. The entire offensive line almost is out from the majority of the beginning of the season. Then even Puka Nacua missed a bunch of time, Cooper Kupp. It was a challenge for them to get healthy guys on that side of the ball. And you say, well, why does that matter? Every team. It matters for this team because they were going to start this season with a really young, inexperienced defense where they're going to have a bunch of young guys playing, 1 year, 2 year guys. And so the offense was supposed to be, hey, we're going to possess the football. We're going to keep the football in our hands. You guys aren't going to get exposed that much. We're going to score points and outscore people. And we haven't seen that because everybody was injured. And now here we are, week 13 and 14. And the Rams have finally got their starting offensive line healthy. Week 13 and 14 is the first 2 weeks of the entire season that they've had their guys start in back-to-back games that they had planned to start the season with. So you look at it, they've looked better. They've looked like an efficient offense, and they, obviously had a great day against Buffalo. I think they're poised for another one of these runs. The biggest challenge they have is this Thursday night. They're playing in San Francisco, and the Niners are going to get, it looks like, a lot of their guys back. There's a possibility of Bosa's playing. Trent Williams is coming back. They're saying Dre Greenlaw's had this game circled as his return game. It sounds like a lot of their dudes are going to be back this week. And so it's going to be a big challenge. And to me, this is the one. If they can beat the Niners in San Francisco on Thursday Night Football, they are poised to go make the playoffs, because you look at the scenarios at the Jets, winnable game. The Cardinals are coming to them at their place. And the Cardinals season, depending on how the next few weeks goes, they could be kind of out of the picture possibly. And then Seattle, they beat Seattle the first time. So no matter what, week 18, Seattle's going to have to beat the Rams in LA to win this division. So really the Rams could set themselves up this Thursday night with a win to be in a pure lane to make the playoffs. While we can circle Seattle week 18, we beat them, we're in. I like that scenario for them because they're getting healthier. And this young defense, although it's giving up points, has some young rushers that are really special, and that can change a game.
Well, what's your read on the 49ers? Because the one thing I always said about the Rams, and Sean McVay, I think, is as impressive as everybody has said he is, but he really looked like a genius, and we said that out loud when he had Todd Gurley. Like, that was the next level afterburner thing. Kyle Shanahan seems to be in a similar place with Christian McCaffrey, where it looks pretty good without him. With him is when it looks like, oh, this could be the best team in the league, and that's the one guy that's not coming back.
Yeah, he's not coming back. And so I think it's tough to really see a lane where the Niners get back in this. They're a game behind everybody. They're 2 games behind the Seahawks. So you look at it, it's kind of hard to draw up the scale of like, how do they get back in this? How healthy are they really? I think obviously the odds play in their favor on a road game on a Thursday night to play well against the Rams, but how can they finish the season from there? They still have the Lions. They got some challenges there that I think will be tough for them. So I don't see them really having a pure lane to get back in this conversation. I think it's really Rams or Seahawks to me. And I think the Rams probably have the cleanest lane, and the Seahawks, to me, are the best team right now. I really love how the Seahawks are playing defensively, and so I think right now they're the best team. But I think the Rams have a really clear lane to make it happen. And for the Niners, it's unfortunate. It's one of those years. You've lost a lot of guys in injury. Every time it kind of feels like you're about to take a step forward, they have another injury happen or a tough situation. So it's one of those years. They happen in the NFL, and unfortunately, they're part of the game. Some seasons are like this. They've been healthy in years past and had opportunities to be in a Super Bowl and everything else. And it kind of sticks out because they didn't take advantage of those opportunities. Had they won one of those Super Bowls, we'd probably be like, you know what, hey, they won a Super Bowl, it's okay. But because they haven't, it feels like, man, another missed opportunity for this team.
I'm curious about this for you with the 49ers also. You played, as I think about this with your career, what I would say is a wide range of good quarterbacks. Different levels of good, right? Some like the pretty good, the Andy Dalton, the can be spectacular, but throw you out of game every now and then with Carson Palmer, Matt Stafford, who's almost like a quarterback out of granite, Jared Goff. Like, you've played with the range of guys. What do you think when you see Brock Purdy?
When I see Brock, I mean, I think to me, what I think's been impressive is that you can tell there's been a real conscious effort by Kyle Shanahan this year to say, all right, how do I see growth? How do I see what I need to see out of him to really feel comfortable about how we move forward as a franchise? And what I mean by that is this year, it was a little different to start the season. Now, granted, they knew they weren't going to have McCaffrey, so you have to change a little bit. But they decided to play more drop back, like true drop back pass, and really put him in scenarios where it's like, hey, Brock, it's going to be on you to make good decisions, put us in positions to win, to really lead this offense. Not something where we go, all right, you remember the Jared Goff criticisms of early in McVay's era, like, hey, everything, unless he gets a chance to talk to him in his headset or go under center or be a no huddle, we don't feel comfortable about it. We want to see him play outside of that. You could tell there's like a real conscious effort by Kyle to take him out of that showcase what he's good at, the timing and rhythm, the vision he plays with, all those things stick out when you see him play. And yeah, is he the dynamic traits that you have of some other quarterbacks? No, but if he can do that well enough, and then also when they have their guys and Kyle Shanahan, he can do all the stuff we've seen him do that's gotten him to Super Bowls. I think he's proven that he's worthy of the money, and he's worthy of really them saying, hey, you're going to be our future. Now, will that always look like some of the guys beside him and the horses he's around? Yes, but guess what? So does every other offense in the NFL, other than maybe 2 or 3. Does it matter? Every other quarterback in the league, even Joe Burrow, as insane as he's been, he needs Jamar Chase and he needs T. Higgins, because that is the reality, is you need guys to be able to play good at the quarterback position. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is going to be a top 3 or 5 guy anytime soon, but he is definitely one of those guys that you can win, you can go to a Super Bowl, and you can build an offense around with the right weapons.
Now, it is great to have you, former Cincinnati Bengal, here, because I have questions about that team that I've had for a while, and we'll get to those in just a second right here on The Right Time. The NBA is in full swing, which means you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup between the NFL and the NBA in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. But rather than hearing it from me, let's hear it from an expert picker. Sean, how the picks been going?
You know, Bo, I'm probably an expert picker solely on the sheer volume of picks I make, but the picking's been good. I got the NBA and the NFL where I can make picks between both leagues. I can pick Cooper Kupp one day and LeBron James the other, and I love that flexibility that Prize Picks gives. And, you know, as always, make sure you stick around for the end of the show to hear my upcoming picks. And if you know me, you know I'm always picking more.
So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Peloton has what you need to keep you on track to your goals no matter what season of life you're in. I've been trying to get my way back to 100% after a little injury, but Peloton has me covered each step of the way. Peloton has all sorts of classes depending on how hard you want to train. If you want to take it easy, some days you can take a lighter cycling or cardio class to help you with your recovery. They have programs to keep you on track, from strength training programs you can use at the gym to meditation and yoga for the postgame. Plus, you can challenge yourself anywhere with Peloton's all-access membership. You can work out where you need to, like at your home, on your bike, tread, and row, or take your favorite classes on the go and at the gym with the app. The app is super convenient, and I genuinely use it every week. And in this season, for me specifically, Peloton's wide range of stretching and recovery classes are perfect to keep my body moving at 100%. So make sure you download the Peloton app today. Find your push, find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. And if you don't believe me, Sean, tell them how easy it is to sign up.
To get started, go to mintmobile.com/Bomani. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk, and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Bomani. That's mintmobile.com/Bomani. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Bomani. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for more details.
All right, we're back here with Andrew Whitworth, and this has been a wild year for the Bengals because Joe Burrow has been lights out. Jamar Chase, another LSU guy, has been lights out. The defense, the lights are on. The lights are on at all times. It is the Red Roof Inn. They are. Anyway, you want to come stop by, anybody can do this. My question for you, though, about this organization is larger because the Bengals are interesting, right? There's been the best of times, there's been the worst of times, and most notably, they've been really cheap over the history of that franchise. Since Burrow has gotten there, and I think Chase also, because it's hard to separate those two, because Burrow had that first year and got hurt, then Chase came and everything was different. But we think of that franchise as completely different than we had before. Are those two guys that impactful on the entire franchise, or is it just a matter of sometimes guys are just really good players, and that's the part that matters?
Yeah, I think there's been a real intent by Zach Taylor to change really that narrative, and I think that he's done a great job of that. I think that when you look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I think it's hard to say that it's not. And I'll say this, not to take anything away from Jamar, because I think he's continuing to show that he may be one of the best players in the NFL, period, regardless of position. But Joe Burrow is a rare dude. I had a chance his rookie year when he got hurt. It was actually in 2020 is when I got hurt as well. I blew out my PCL and MCL, missed 8 weeks and came back for the playoffs with the Rams. But during the time I was hurt, Dr. Neil Elitrosh, a good friend of mine, had done Joe's surgery and linked Joe and I, even though he played at LSU, and I'd kind of sent him some messages over time we'd never met. So I had Joe over to the house a couple times to watch NFL Sundays. We got our legs up, rehabbing, just both of us stove up basically on the IR list. And so, we're hanging out together watching games, and Doc would come over and kind of check on us and stuff. But getting to spend time with him and realizing this guy's mentality, he is a rare human. And I always kind of said from that moment, and I've said this to anybody who listened to me, not talking about Tom Brady's success, because I hate when we get in those conversations, but when you hear like, oh man, Tom, his attitude and his demeanor and how he carried himself and the way he was able to push people and elevate people around him was so rare, and it sticks out when people are like, what are the reasons that he's a GOAT? When you're around Joe Burrow, it is very easy to see quickly in a conversation when you get a little intimate time with him, man, this dude has an ability to like raise the level of intensity in a room. And like, it's real. And talking to Zach Taylor in team meetings and different things, which I think is neat, getting to see him on this in-season version, really insider viewership of like getting to see their team meetings and their dynamics. Like you see how serious he is in a team meeting. I think it's cool to see that because Joe Burrow is that guy. Like he just somebody who like the intensity level is rare, and being around elite head coaches, Sean McVay, Nick Saban, some of the guys I've gotten to be around that I put in that category, he's just like that. Like every single day is just as intense, no matter what's going on in his life, no matter what's going on around him. He is locked in and he is chasing greatness in every moment. And it's not how he feels, it's where he's planning to go that drives who he is. And so I think it's cool seeing like some of the impact he's had. Now, those limitations you talked about are still there. The organization is not one that has been aggressive when it comes to spending money, that's been aggressive when it's come to trading for people or making moves. Like I always think of 2011 to 15, how good we were. I mean, to win multiple division championships, to really go to the playoffs, 5 years in a row, and we never made a move. Like we never said, all right, let's go trade for one more guy, or let's go pay this guy in free agency that just takes us over that hump to go win a playoff game and go chase a championship as good as we were. They kind of feel like they're in that situation right now. It kind of feels like they got to make an aggressive move, and I just don't know if that's in their being to make that aggressive move to change things. My aggressive move was 2 years ago. They should have traded T. Higgins after they lost in Kansas City in the AFC Championship, because I feel like that's how they build, is through the draft, through picks. They had to take an opportunity to say, pick one of the receivers, trade one of them, and let's go build this team around Joe Burrow, not necessarily with just weapons.
See, I saw Joe Burrow play one game early in 2019. I actually talked to Ryan about it. I was like, if they beat Alabama, that's the Heisman Trophy winner and the number one pick in the draft. And it was a play with him just moving around in the pocket. I was like, oh, yeah, I know how this ends.
Yeah, dude, he's crazy. I mean, some of the stories he would share of just the intensity and just how he plays football, it's unbelievable, really, to him. It's like this killer instinct, because I think Ryan Fitzpatrick and I have talked about it, he's almost scary. Like sometimes when you're around him, you're like, man, this dude is different. Like he kind of scares you to say hello to, because it's like sometimes he's so intense, it's gonna be an awkward hello, like because he's not gonna like play the whole "what's up, man" game. He is locked in, so you got to be careful of the moments that you want to go engage. And he is intense that way. So I think, man, He's a rare dude who elevates the people around him. And I think they're going to continue to be successful, but they've got to fix the defense. They've got to fix, to me, what are the ways that you really say, hey, and that's why I'm against having both receivers. It's about building the rest of the team to just be, hey, middle of the road. You could be 15 or above on defense. Like, that's perfect. That's all you need. This guy will handle the rest. For them, when they've been that, they went to a Super Bowl, and I played against them. But when they haven't, when they've been bottom of the league on defense, they're exactly what they are. They're going to score a ton of points, and they're going to lose football games. But they got to find a way to build around him, because I think you can give him Jamar and anybody else, and he's going to be successful.
Yeah, now Chase is unreal. Like, that's one where I feel like we're in a period now where we don't talk about it as much, but there are a lot of really, really good wide receivers out here. And I mean, LSU, apparently you guys are doing this, right? Jefferson's probably the best receiver in the league, and Chase is probably number 2. Like, we're going to look at that offense and say that there were probably at least 3 Hall of Famers on that offense in 2019.
Yeah, it's crazy. You think of what Jamar is, and it's not just, catching passes and running routes. Like, you watch him when he gets the ball in his hand, it's like people are paralyzed to tackle him. Like, and what I think is interesting is sometimes when you watch those kind of guys, you're like, I don't even know that he looks that fast, or he looks whatever. It just looks like no one else is moving when he has the football in his hand. And even the play he had recently against the Cowboys to win the game at the end, it's like, it looks like they just have no chance to touch him or tackle him. It's wild, his ability when he gets the football in his hands to make plays and almost be like a elite running back once he has the football in his hands, much less his ability to make catches and run routes and do everything else. And also, it's impressive. You think from a mental capacity, like, he goes everywhere. They put him all over the field. Sometimes he's in the backfield. Sometimes he's in the slot. Sometimes he's outside. His ability to handle all that, much like Justin Jefferson, it's like people talk about their skill sets, but man, the mental capacity to handle all the places they are in an offensive set every single week, that is a challenge, and it's insanely impressive to understand that and master that as well, much less their skill sets.
Hey, he knows he's that dude too. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, we got we got a renaissance of what I'll say throwback wide receivers. We got AJ Brown throwing the quarterback under the bus, impressive availability. Like, we start looking around and feeling these receivers. It's like, oh, this all sounds very familiar. The diva receiver is back.
Hey, listen, A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts situation is so bad, it got Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens fighting again. I mean, how bad is the situation got to be that we went back decades to start arguing again? I mean, that was wild. That one got me yesterday. Like, unbelievable. That's how bad it is. Now we're going all the way back. We'll just get everybody in a circle. Let's get all the diva receivers and all the old quarterbacks who used to fight. Let's just all get in a circle and let's hash it out, man.
I couldn't believe, though, that it was so bad that Brandon Graham completely took leave of his senses and was like, I'm going to talk about this in front of everybody on the Brandon Graham show. Then tried to come back and be like, yeah, I went too far. Yes, you did go too far, because we are all up in it now. It was bad enough what AJ did after the game. Then he came.
Yeah, that was one of those that it's hard to walk back from. It's hard to say, yeah, oh, no, you know what? I might have. No, I think I wasn't right when I was saying, like, no, you sounded pretty convicted with everything you said.
And he's hurt. So it's not even like he's playing right now. Like, I know that he's a veteran, but isn't he supposed to be quiet?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, I guess, man, you get on there and you get excited and you just, hey, you know what? I got some emotions I want to get out, and he got them out. But, once you do it, I think you got to just say, hey, man, I shared what I felt, because it's tough to walk back out of that one.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, though, switching gears a little bit. We probably got the best 2 teams in the NFL playing this weekend. We've got the Bills against my Lions. I decided to adopt them because I really enjoy what they have going on. And I feel like every offensive lineman I talk to, they're the only people that love the Lions more than I do.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, when I get a chance to watch this group and how they go about every week, I mean, that would be a lot of freaking fun, man. They line up and just run the football at people. And then you got the gadgets. And then they're like, hey, you know what? Let's thank Penei Sewell for all these great blocks. Let's give him a reverse pass. I mean, who does that, right? And so you think about it, man, it just feels like when you look across the league, to me, it's funny. It's those 2 teams that we're talking about. Is if you told me, hey, man, make a list of some teams across the league that kind of the opposite of what we just said about A.J. Brown and the Eagles situation that you think have the best cultures. Like, and I don't mean culture like the word everybody's using of all, like, every team that's winning has a pretty good culture going on. I can promise you that. But I just mean when you say, hey, some infectious energy, some teams that you just feel good about them. You just feel like every time they play, every time you see them do an interview, every time you see them celebrate, you're like, man, this team feels like it loves each other, like there's a real bond. It'd probably be the Buffalo Bills and Detroit Lions at the top of that list. I'd probably say Bills are 1 and Detroit's 2, but you think of the golf chants with the Lions, you think of the Bills and the music in the stadium, the snow and that energy they had all together. It feels like there's no chance you're beating them. Just like when you go to Detroit and those golf chants start and you're like, man, this team is so talented. They're so good. They've got an amazing home field advantage. It doesn't feel like you can beat them in Detroit, when they're playing like that. So when I think of those two teams, it's not just how talented they are, especially Detroit, but man, just the energy and vibe they have about them. It feels like everyone wants to see them win, man. And it's rare to me to kind of feel that. And they also be really good teams. I think Detroit too is a rare one because I think, for them, some of these guys are going to come back that they've had hurt on defense. And that really sets them apart. And if I was to say a week ago, Bomani, I would have told you I thought how the Eagles were playing, they might be edging over the Lions. And then this past week, at getting to watch the Lions-Packers game in person for Thursday Night Football in Detroit, man, if the playoffs are going through Detroit, I don't know if anybody's beating that team in Detroit. I'm just telling you, because they got the big fellas to handle the Philadelphia Eagles front D-line. They got the guys on defense to handle the Philadelphia Eagles big. They've got a big group too. So I think that if this playoffs goes to Detroit, they're going to be the team representing the NFC.
The Eagles going to have a tough week, too, because they get the home game, but they've got to play against Pittsburgh. And this, again, with all the madness that we just talked about them having, and them having a legitimate question about what they can do with their quarterback, which is a question that we've been asking about Hurts literally since the year 2016, right? Does he cap what you can do through the air? Buffalo and Detroit, though, what I think is interesting, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, where the culture in Detroit and that energy feels like it definitely comes from the coach, right?
Yep.
Buffalo, I can't think of anybody, and I have to talk about this every time I talk about him so people don't act like I'm getting funny style, but I was the super Josh Allen skeptic when he was throwing the ball over people's heads and couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. That has nothing to do with right now. Like, the energy seems to be around the fact everybody seems to just like playing with the big galoot who could throw it as hard as he can and just runs around. It looks like a high school player where he's just still bigger and faster and stronger than everybody else.
It did. Watching the Rams game, I went to the game in LA this week, Rams Bills. I mean, it doesn't seem fair. When he starts running around, that's when you know it's Josh Allen time. You look at them this season, they've been a little different how they've played as far as their style, running the football, and some of the things they've tried to do, having 6 linemen out on the field, trying to create an identity, I think, a little bit, and a little bit of, hey, let's pull Josh back sometimes, and let's create an identity and say, when we need you, we'll use you. But when that game got to 17-7, it was like the Bills said, all right, after the block punt for a touchdown for the Rams, it's Josh Allen time, man. Put your cape on. Let's go. They abandoned all the other stuff and said, you go be great and go be elite. And he did it the entire game. They just couldn't find a way to stop the Rams. And so when you're watching him like that, man, it's electric. And you can feel the energy and the vibe of that team is special. I think that there's still some clear windows for them. I don't think they want to see the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs because I think very similar to what the Rams had success with. I think the Ravens are going to run it right at them. And I think that's a challenge for them because then Josh has to be Superman for them to win. But I think against everybody else, they feel pretty good. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to me is that I think the Bills are a really good team and could represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But I think there has to be a certain path, and maybe it is you need the Baltimore Ravens get beat by somebody else because that really stylistic, we're talking about styles of football. It is true every year. There's certain teams that you just don't play as well against. That's one that's going to be a struggle for them. It's no different than the Rams. I've said this, like for them to make their run, like they've got to avoid the athletic quarterback because the teams have kind of had that with their young defense. They don't have a ton of speed. You see those teams have eaten them alive. I mean, Kyler Murray destroyed them. Josh Allen destroyed them offensively. So those kind of teams are going to be a tough. Jalen Hurts obviously did too. Those kind of teams will be really a challenge for the Rams. And so for the Bills, it's maybe there's a certain path, but I think they've got to avoid the Baltimore Ravens.
Now, where are you on the Steelers? Because Russell Wilson was so bad 2 years ago, and so I just didn't see it last year, right? Like there's a reason why the Broncos pay so much cap room just to let him go. But Tomlin fooled us all. He said he's gonna be the starter, and it had no doubt in his mind. And yes, the offense got better. He looks like a capable NFL quarterback again. And I still don't know how much I should buy into what's going on there.
Well, I'm the same way because I did it early in the season on our show. You know, I of course I get the question about, you know, whether it's Russ. And I said no. I just, after watching the Denver episode, I was like, man, I'm out on all that. And then, you know what? Sometimes you forget, you know, that Mike Tomlin is the OG and he is the legend of a coach he is, for exactly a situation like this. He has clearly put parameters on Russ of, hey, man, I need you to go be a great football player. I don't need any of the antics. I don't need any of the other crap. Like, just go play football, and let's play winning football and win football games. And you've seen it. Russ has been polished and just, hey, I'm here to win football games. You don't get any of the other mess. And so I think Tomlin has been great for him in that way. And hats off to Tomlin. That was not an easy decision when he made it at all. Everybody, I mean, even, you know, everybody across every platform was like, I don't agree. You know, nobody really agreed with it. There's only very few people. And Russ has played awesome. And what I think is interesting is not only has he played well, they've actually grown since he's been playing, in the sense of, you look at even last week, some of the things they're doing offensively, they're adding some wrinkles that other teams across the league are having success with. There's a bunch of RPO action game stuff going on. Russ is running around. He was making some plays with his feet in the pocket, going up in the pocket and making throws. Like, he almost looks like this is giving him more life and more like, all right, like, I'm now starting to feel more confident in my skill set and less hesitant. And you don't see him just checking the ball down and being safe. Like, he's actually feels like he's almost gotten more aggressive as the year's gone. And they felt like, all right, we can open up even more, which I think has led to why this continues to grow and get better. And people keep waiting for the fall off. And the fall off hasn't happened. They, if anything, they've actually like improved in the ways that they're able to attack people. And so I think it's going to be interesting because this defense is real and they can run the football, man. I was watching their tape yesterday, just kind of going through some runs because I want to check this offensive line out. I was impressed with them when we had them a few weeks ago. They can run the football, man. They move people. They get after people up front. I think it'll be a big challenge for the young rookie McCormick against Jalen Carter. But this is another opportunity for him to kind of cement himself. He's been an impressive young right guard rookie, and the center has been unbelievable. Frazier's been unreal. So I think this young O-line is really a sneaky part of like the success they're having because they can run the football and they have an identity.
Man, Tomlin needs one because he ain't won a playoff game since Obama was the president, and that is not an exaggeration. That is literally the truth. Well, actually, one last thing before we get out of here. The Kansas City Chiefs, either they're winners or they're really lucky, or maybe there's some winners who have been really lucky. What do you think is going on there? Like, at some point, it feels like this has to catch up, except it hasn't caught up.
Yeah, I think they're winners that have been getting really lucky because the truth is, we talk about this in the league every year. We're going to look back after the season, and the Chiefs are obviously going to be a big part of the statistic, but every season we're going to end it and we're going to go, man, I didn't realize there's that many one-score games. I didn't realize there's that many games that end up this way because you think of, well, no, I thought this team was dominant the whole year, but oh, wow, they won 8 games that were really close games, or they won 6 games that were really close games. The truth of the matter is that is the NFL, and it's even more so, it's the playoffs. And if you're mastering the last 5 to 6 minutes of the game, or the last 4 minutes, or the last 2 minutes, then you're going to win a lot of freaking games in the NFL. So we can grade off of, man, what's spectacular about them, what awes us for the beginning of the game. But here's the reality. There's a lot of games that we can do that all game long. And at the end of the game, your favorite team who's wowed you all game long blows the last 4 minutes of the game and doesn't handle it correctly, and they lose. The Buffalo Bills being a great example last week against the Rams, mishandling the 3 timeouts on the 1 yard line, going for a sneak, wasting the timeout, could have easily gotten the ball back, 3 timeouts, gotten the ball back with time to go kick a field goal and win the game, but they mishandled the situation. The Chiefs, when is the last time you've said, well, Andy Reid mishandled that situation, Patrick Mahomes mishandled that situation? They don't. So as much as we don't like them, as long as they continue to dominate teams in the league the last 5 minutes and keep themselves in a 1-score game, guess what they're going to do? They're going to win, and we're going to keep complaining about it, and we're going to be mad about it all we want. But if you can dominate the last 5 minutes, you win freaking football games. That's just the truth.
The only thing I can't forget, I have only gone wrong once picking Patrick Mahomes, and it was that Super Bowl, and I'll never forget when I looked up and they ran the pictures of the offensive linemen, and I
That's
saw
it.
Mike Remmers at left tackle, and I said to myself, "Oh boy, I believe I have made an error, and this season has been tackle free for the Chiefs." That's
Hey,
the
let me tell you something.
thing.
I was taking sets about a week or two ago until they signed DJ Humphries, because I was like, man, I'm watching this team and this left tackle situation, and I'm like, listen, I know the only time I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes beat, and that was when they lost both their tackles going into the Super Bowl. So I'm going to stay ready just in case, Andy. Andy, I'm out here. No, but once they got DJ Humphries, I was like, all right, this changes it for me, because this guy can play. He's been a great player for the Cardinals, just unfortunately not on great teams at that time. If he's healthy, this is a huge factor for them, because that position has been without question the weakest link of the team all season long. And it's been why they've kind of had to do some of the things they've done offensively. And DJ Humphries changes that if they've now got a left tackle that can play the way they expect.
Look, one more ring for Andrew Whitworth. Just putting the call out there right now. Andy Reid, if you need it, the man says he can do that. Travis work over here. He can put in a call. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. I got about 7 plays in me. If they need me for that, I'm good.
Look, that's Andrew Whitworth. Check him out on Fitz and Whit right here on Wave Sports and Entertainment. New podcast, been going for a little bit. Check him out on YouTube and wherever your podcasts are given away for free. My man, I greatly appreciate you.
Man, anytime, brother. I appreciate you having me.
No problem. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this 3 times a week. Sean Yu handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. And we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.